topics that we need to discuss. One such issue is what they call self-plagiarism. We talked about plagiarism. I hope you understood what is plagiarizing means. Copy and pasting from somebody else's paper. Now, self-plagiarizing is another concept. Now, I have written a paper I published a paper as a conference proceedings, and then I expanded that and made that five let's say 3000 words paper, added another 5000 words more, but then my original 3000 words remains as it is. I did not do anything to do that. I did not paraphrase or anything. Added another 5000 words to that particular article and I sent it to a journal. Now, journal will check plagiarism and they will say that this 30% of the paper is similar to another paper that was published by the same author 2 years ago or 1 year ago. And that is considered self-plagiarism. Again, you are not supposed to do that. If you have written a paper, you done a research and you submitted that paper to a conference published it, but the same idea, if you want to send it to a journal later on, you have to ensure that the similarity is below 10%. You can't say that, the first paper also was written by me. No, you cannot escape that. It is called self-plagiarism. So self-plagiarism is also known as text recycling or redundant publication that occurs when an author reuses the previously published work or a significant portion of the previously published work without proper acknowledgement or citations. So even if you are referring to your previous work, you need to cite. A lot of people cannot cite because you are taking a large portion of that. It becomes very difficult to cite. While it may not involve stealing someone else's ideas, it is still considered unethical in academic and scholarly context because it misleads the reader, publishers, and evaluators about the originality of the work. So, self-plagiarism to be avoided. So, within this, there are a number of things people talk about when we talk about self-plagiarism. One, they call it duplicate publication. Publishing the same paper or substantially similar versions in multiple journals without disclosing its prior publication. Example, submitting the same research article to different journals to use those publication count, because at the end of the day, I told you, journals, many universities want more journals from the faculties. You get paid for it, you get acknowledged for it. Your promotion depends upon the number of papers that you have published. Your getting admission to a university depends upon your having more papers in your name. So there is a need for numbers, and university need more numbers because university is going for a NAC accreditation or QS ranking, etc. So all of these requires number. Now, if number becomes the factor, a lot of the more the number, the better the university, and university will start giving you more incentives for the number of papers that you publish, etc. So that is one of the things that pushes people to submit the same paper or parts. You divide the paper into multiples and send it to different journals. Or same paper you paraphrase into 3 different papers, exactly the same thing. Only thing is that the language is different. That's it. And send it to 3 different journals. Concept is same, data is same, everything is same, but that's considered a duplicate publication. So try not to do it. You should not do it, because if you're caught, then you have to face the consequences. Consequences, as I said earlier, it can be blacklisted by the journal. If the journal finds that the problem is severe, they will send right to the registrar of the universities, and there has to be an inquiry and BITEC within the university, and university may decide to suspend you, to demote you, to dismiss you. All these are eventual consequences. Then they talk about salami slicing, splitting one significant study into some smaller segments and publishing them as separate papers, often with overlapping content. Now, sometimes we have a very kind of big idea, and then we collect data from some through some 50, 60 questions, and we have many independent dependent variables that we have, and then collect the data. Everything is done perfectly good. Now you break that into smaller pieces. A lot of people do that, what they call salami slicing. Then they talk about text recycling, reusing text from one's own previous work, such as introductions, methods, literature reviews, without citation or acknowledgement. So I am writing on a same topic, and I use my previous literature review into my new research. Methodology section I wrote for one paper, and I reuse the same methodology section in subsequent papers, because methodology is same, data is different. That's the only things. So and then the last one they talk about is an unacknowledged reuse of figures or data. So a lot of people these days, I observed some of my friends do it. What they do is that you collect one set of data, and then the same data is used for all the subsequent papers. So there is no new data getting collected. You use the same data. Only thing is that you change the name of the constructs. Let's say I have an independent variable, dependent variables. So you change the name of the independent variables, dependent variables, and run the data for every research that you are doing subsequently. So that is also is being done by people. Again, not to do it. So why people do it? Self-plagiarism, or why is it problematic? It is a deceptive practice. It misrepresents the work as original, misleading readers and publishers. It wastes resources, duplicate submissions, waste the time, resources of the journal editors and reviewers, because journal editors need to spend a lot of time to understand the paper. Then they need to identify potential reviewers. The reviewers has to read the whole thing. I know a lot of man hours wasted in the process. Distortion of academic metrics. I told you the numbers. Inflates the publication count, citation metrics of individuals, that without actually creating any new productivity. So, but then it gives you a impression that X researcher is a voracious researcher, etc. Whereas he has done all these kind of one research and then multiple outputs from the same research. Violation of copyrights. Many journals require authors to transfer copyrights. So you are violating the copyrights by publishing same metric, same kind of content in another research paper, and of course all these leads to erosion of trust. As I told you, we as an Indian research collectively has eroded the trust. So the number of papers retracted vis-a-vis the number of papers published, India would be number one in the world in terms of cheaters, various kind of academic misconduct. And as a result, today, when an Indian researcher sends a paper for publication, the editors think three times, four times before even sending it to a reviewer. Your papers, it's not easy for you to get your papers published. That's what is happening. Erosion of trust is a very important factor. I realized that a few years ago, we were sending papers for publication. Many publication senders, we send the paper, all getting rejected. And then finally, one of my friends said, why don't you have a collaborator? So we went to a collaborator. I think he was from Nigeria, an African collaborator. And the same paper sent it to a journal. Within 1 month, entire process was over and paper got published. You see, corresponding author makes a lot of sense. Our trust, collectively, we have lost the trust by the research community because a lot of us are doing cutting corners. We think that मैं करूँ तो क्या problem है? When everybody thinks that the whole system gets corrupted. You remember the categorical imperative and rule utilitarianism, which says breaking of a rule, if it is going to create a general erosion of trust or a general erosion of the societal values, then rather not do it. You should not do it. And categorical imperative says there are certain things you should not do it. So, from a researcher's perspective, don't take a utilitarian perspective, take always a
So,
categorical imperative perspective.
so I have a
Somebody,
question over here.
please.
Rahul, are you? So
Yes, ma'am.
that means that relatively you need to have an author from an some from other country. It's like if suppose if I'm publishing a paper and if I want you to be my the co-author like in that part, so will it not get published or the chances are very less? Or what exactly this means? Like you need to have an
As
author from
what I
abroad,
said
like
is,
from. Mhm.
okay, once again, come back and ask me the question.
So you said like sometimes like for publishing the papers, many of the researchers struggle because they and when they have a co-author from some other part of the country, some other part of the other
Well,
countries, like then it gets published very fast. That is what you're trying to say. Like if we have a co-author from India, will it not get published? Like
I'm not saying it will not get published. What I'm saying is
chances are
that the
less.
scrutiny is very severe. And of course, these days, a lot of editors are not very comfortable processing a paper from an Indian author unless that is
Mhm.
an established researcher, somebody who was writing from, let's say, IITs, etc., etc.
Okay.
Um, it becomes difficult for an Indian author to get published. I'm not saying Indian authors will not get papers are getting published. We do that, but a good quality journal is always thinking twice when it is from an Indian journal, an Indian
Okay.
researcher. So that is why
Okay.
these days there is a lot of effort, there's a lot of suggestions to collaborate with somebody from outside India. There's a high possibility that paper will get published. And
Okay.
not only that, you also can get the publication fee from those people. So it makes sense.
Yes, sir. Got it. It's
Yeah.
clear.
So deceptive practices. So all these are why we should not do. How to avoid self plagiarism. So always cite the previous work, even if you have done, cite it as much as possible. Use proper attribution. If reusing text or data, attribute it. Be transparent with the editors. So when you are writing your paper, when you are sending a paper to publish with a researcher, with a journal, you need to write a cover letter. In that cover letter, you can become as elaborative as possible, but then don't make too big a cover letter. So within one page, however, whatever you can actually disclose, make all the disclosures possible. Follow journal policies. It's important that you read the journal policies. Every journal has got a policy, publication policies there. I asked you, na, last week you read one journal's publication policy. It's important that you read those policies and always write new. Ensure that you don't, you know, churn out papers after papers after papers. So that's something that you have to do. And there are also what they call acceptable exceptions in this particular area. So what are accepted practices? Permitted text recycling. Some reuse of methods, sections, or standard procedures may be acceptable, especially in technical fields if properly cited. That's accepted. Preprints, publishing a peer-reviewed version of your work previously posted as a preprint is generally acceptable in the journal. Uh, Not all journals permit it, but many journals permit that. So these are acceptable exceptions. And then there is an entire section on salami slicing. Uh, Piecemeal publication refers to the unethical practice of dividing a single significant piece of research into multiple smaller papers to maximize the number of publications. So this is called salami slicing. Publishing the results of a single experiment as separate papers for each variable studied. Reporting preliminary findings in one paper followed by additional analysis in subsequent papers without justification. Another way of salami slicing is dividing a single data set into multiple papers, each focusing on a small subset of the data. So, characteristics of salami slicing, fragmentation of research. Instead of presenting all findings in one comprehensive paper, the research is split into multiple smaller papers. Each paper might contain overlapping data or practical results or partial results that lack sufficient novelty on their own. And editors kind of detect it very easy because they have been working on number of papers. It becomes easy for editors to find out whether your paper is complete or partial, etc. Then there is overlapping content may arise. Papers often have similar introductions, methods, or results leading to redundancy and unnecessary repetition, misrepresentation of work. The fragmented publication may give impression of multiple studies when in reality they stem from the same research project or data sets. So again, this is not acceptable process because increase the workload for editors, mislead the scientific community, distract academic metrics, reduces the quality of the research, etc., etc. So it's important that you don't do it. Avoid salami slicing as much as possible. Publish comprehensive studies. Always publish comprehensive studies. Ensure each paper is distinct from your previous paper. Disclose related publications. That's another thing that you need to. Then follow journal guidelines. That's something that you need to do it. So and always they say when in doubt, ask. And Cope also gives you something on this particular thing. What is this? Okay, conflict of interest is discussed here. So let's just look back and ask for salami slicing. So they also have a lot of examples. There are 291 results for salami slicing in code. So salami slicing, duplicate publication, etc. So this is a case study. Let's just look at what it is. An article with 4 authors was published in journal A. The same article with a slight change in the title and one additional author was published 3 months later in journal B. The authors had submitted the article to both the journals at the same time. So, what is the issue? An article with 4 authors. Okay, the number of study subjects in 2 articles were the same, with a very slight difference in the wordings of the objective of the study. The first article focused on one outcome, whereas the second article extracted the results on two aspects. The results were similar, and the discussion was focused on the two different results obtained. The author had submitted a disclaimer to Journal B stating that the article was part of their PhD thesis. This statement was not submitted to Journal A. Also, it was not declared to either journal that the two articles had been extracted from a one thesis and published in two journals. On questioning the author, the reply was that they had included the disclaimer that the article was derived from the PhD thesis. So, this is considered an anonymized text. A lot of people, because PhD requires a large amount of data, and you realize that this large amount of data can be published in many. You can come out with many papers, and a lot of researchers do this, and they don't think that there is anything wrong with it. So they don't. Many researchers would encourage people to publish more papers from the same data set. It do happen, and that's where the issue happens. So, what is the advice? While it is possible to ethically derive multiple articles from a PhD thesis, this paper to be a case of redundant duplicate publication. Thus, according to the Koch flowchart on suspected redundant publication in a published article, Journal B should consider publishing a statement of redundant publication or retraction inform the editor of the chief. So, editor in chief. That's something that you need to do. So that's about salami slicing, duplicate publication, etc. So there is a lot of such articles here. Again, handling duplicate or redundant content, case of salami slicing, again, Google suggestions salami slicing, redundant publication, self-plagiarism, and the suspected salami slicing publishing. So these are all examples, cases that the various editors have reported, reviewers have reported, that Coke has received and reviewed. And based on these, then Coke comes out with policies. Post-publication duty or responsibilities. So the publication is not the end. Even after the publication, there are certain responsibilities that the author has. Say, for example, you published a paper and somebody wrote a comment, somebody criticized your paper. So it's important that you respond to it. And if you realize earlier when the online journals were not there, we had these print journals, and in these print journals there was always I wrote a paper and somebody wrote a counter argument to my paper, and then I have to come out with again there is a letter back and forth discussion that used to happen within journals. So, general consensus is that my paper is worthless, then I have to retract the paper. So, these all used to happen. Now, with the online, there is always more stricter discipline and oversight that is happening, where the editors are responsible are actually happening, and editors, if they suspect, they immediately contact the author, and if authors do not respond, they go to the university's vice chancellors and registrars. So they take the issue, and if nobody responds, then they unilaterally retract the paper and blacklist that author and that university. Today, if you look at, there are universities identified, top 10 universities for retractions. Now, there was a list published by some kind of organizations, and in the top 10, about 6 or 7 of those universities were from where maximum number of retraction that has happened are from India. So very, very dangerous scenario. It is very severe.
आठवड्यात आपल्या
And it
देशात
is
काय चालू
on
होतं ते
one
सगळ्यांना
need to
माहिती आहे, पण
afford
त्याच्या मागे आपला देश दुसरं काहीतरी करत
integrity
होता
of
हे मात्र
research
कोणाला माहिती.
from Indian authors. So post publication ethical dimensions in research. Research publication, what do we mean by post publication ethical dimension is that the ethical issues and responsibilities that arise after a research article has been published. Addressing these dimensions is crucial to maintaining the integrity of the scientific record, fostering transparency and ensuring
शर्ट हम
conduct.
सभी पहनते हैं और इसलिए ही
So, what are some of those responsibilities? One is corrections and retractions. So, authors are ethically obliged to address errors discovered post publication. After the publication, somebody read the paper and pointed out to the editor that this paper has got certain errors or certain problems, or they said this paper is being copied from my idea and I'm not given credit, etc. So it could be factual, typological, methodological issues. Say, after publication, it was realized that there are certain grammatical mistakes, there are some typological errors. Say, for example, the affiliation, universities affiliations, you wrote, let's say, symbiosis center, CNTER, and the actual what do you call, spelling is CNTRE. And then it can lead to affiliation issues. So university SCIT will not be, when I type symbiosis, the actual symbiosis center for information technology, it will not come, it will not reflect, and that can lead to issues. So those are all things that you have to correct after the publication is done. When significant flaws or unethical practices, there is a possibility that your paper will be retracted. So these are things from a corrections and retractions perspective, the responsibility of the ethical responsibility of the author. Response to criticism. Authors must engage constructively with post-publication peer review or feedback. So somebody criticizes your paper. You cannot say, go to hell. Yeah, this is my paper. This is how I found out. Who are you to, question and critique my paper? Something that you should not say. You need to constructively engage. Yes, if you think you are right, then defend it. If you think actually you made a mistake, accept the mistake and make corrections. It's possible. Journals should provide a platform. Example, comment sections or letters to the editor for constructive dialogues. So, some of the just to summarize most of the things that we discussed so far. Impact and misuse of research. Researchers should monitor how their work is cited, used, to prevent misrepresentation. So you have written a paper, published a paper. So you need to keep a watch on who all are citing your paper. Say, I'll tell you what that means. So this is a paper that I have published. And these are the various citations that I have received. I click on this and I'll get a list of papers that have cited my paper. So all these list of journals cited my paper. I want to see in this paper in what context they have cited my paper. So it's important to keep a watch on who all are citing my paper and how, what context are they citing my paper. Say, Kulkarni et al. Um, this is one of the things that they talk about. Say, number of numerous studies have revealed that several internal and external factors influence the use of AI in business operations, including the organization settings in which the technology is used. Say, for example, in this particular paper, they are not making any particular reference to white paper. So they are saying there is a general tendency that a lot of people have written a paper on the impact of AI on business. Perfect. I don't have a problem. So what I should be looking into is, if I realize that somebody has, cited me for, while talking about completely different from what I have actually written, I can write to the journal's editor saying that, look, in this paper, they have misquoted us. We did not mean this, we meant something else. So that is something that is a post publication responsibility of the author. Ethical use of social media. Now, after the paper is published, authors tend to publish their paper in social media. Say, for example, LinkedIn. It's a professional network. I publish my paper in LinkedIn, saying that very happy to share my latest publication with all of you guys, etc. And I also uh, attach a full PDF. Now it so happened the journal where I published the paper is not having an open access uh, declaration. Now, an open access means once you publish, the journal makes that, allows that paper to be used, full paper can be used without a copyright, without a payment, etc. etc. So I'll talk more about open access in the next session. So once it is not an open access, so if you actually want to read that article, you actually have to pay a certain amount of money. Let's say $30, $40, etc. And instead of doing that, I, as an author, publish my article, full article, in my social media link, and anybody who is reading can download that paper. So I am violating a copyright agreement that I had with the journal. So engaging with critics, okay, that's another thing. Authors and researchers should promote their work responsibly on social platform without exaggerating or misrepresenting the findings. Citation and acknowledgement. Authors and readers should ensure proper citation of the work to acknowledge intellectual contribution and prevent plagiarism. Conflict of interest. Authors are obliged to disclose any new conflict of interest that arise post publication. These are things that we need to keep in mind. Challenges in post publication ethics, delayed correction. Some journals may hesitate to issue corrections or retraction, fearing reputational damage. That would mean that they did not do their due process. So that can show the journal in a very negative sense. So they will not respond to it. Handling allegations, investigating claims of misconduct can be complex and time consuming, especially in multi author or collaborative research. Imagine a research paper that was submitted by about 20, 30 researchers. Now, how are you going to handle it? Now, these 30 researchers come from 30 different universities. So you have to write to each one of the vice chancellors of the university saying that this paper is having a problem. And many universities may take up the issue, some universities may not take up the issue. Then how do you kind of bring all these things into picture. So those are some of the issues that you may end up. And of course, lack of transparency. Institutions and journals may fail to communicate outcomes of investigation. So you may not know that there is a discussion going on your paper in that particular circle, and you may be kept in the dark. So these are all challenges that we may face, and but then we know that your responsibility does not end with publishing a paper. Post publication, there are a lot of these issues that might arise that you need to work on. So please ensure that you are continuously monitoring your work and say that nobody is misusing or misquoting your paper. Ensure the journals must establish and enforce clear guidelines for handling corrections and retractions, etc., etc., and engage with the critique. So, criticism is something that anyone can critique your paper. So, respond to it. Don't say that if you criticize, you become. I don't want to complete that sentence. I hope you understood what I meant. So criticism is something that we need to take very seriously, engage with very positively, and that is the way to become a better researcher. So if you start getting into a dialogue with somebody who is criticizing a paper, eventually you can become very good collaborators. So you are getting a excellent collaborator uh, who could actually help you to become much better researcher,
સમગ્ર ગુજરાત અને
get
ભારતની
a
અંદર જે
better
સોશિયલ મીડિયામાં કૂવાનો વિડીયો વાયરલ
visibility,
થયો છે તે કૂવો
citations,
આજે
etc.,
સવારથી શાંત
etc.,
જોવા મળી
etc.
રહ્યો છે. મોરબી તાલુકાના વીરપરડા ગામ પાસે પ્રાણજીવનભાઈ નામના
Okay.
ખેડૂતના ખેતરની અંદર
So
જે
far,
કૂવો
so
આ
good.
વર્ષે જ બનાવવામાં આવ્યો છે તે પ્રથમ વખત છલોછલ ભરાયો છે ને ત્યાર
Yes. All right. So I'm also getting a big splitting headache. But we will spend a little more time. One more topic I want to complete before we go ahead. I think that will be the last topic for the day. So, this is what they call predatory journals. This predatory journal became very common in the last number of maybe a few years, especially with online journals and the requirement for increasing citation, increasing the publication numbers, etc. So a lot of people realize that it's an excellent opportunity for making money, and many people started their own journals. And there are two things here we are talking about. One is journals that exist to make money, so they will use your vulnerability to maximize their profitability. Second is what they call a cloned journals. There is an established journal, and then uh, you create a journal website that looks exactly similar to the original journal, and and invite publications. So these are the two things that you need to be very careful. You need to be wary of, and ensure that you don't get into those kind of traps when you are publishing. So predatory journals are exploitative academic publishers or publications that lack legitimate peer review and editorial standards. These journals prioritize financial gain over the integrity of scholarly research, often deceiving researchers into paying publication fees without providing the expected academic rigor, visibility, or credibility, etc., etc. So that is predatory journals. So let's look into what this is. So there are a certain lists. Say there are these lists. What they call Bales list is something that people talk about. Uh, if you this is a list of predatory journals. Now they have collated a set of journals that can be considered what they call predatory journals. Now they come out with these kind of lists. So all these are journals that are considered predatory. You should never publish in any of these journals that is in this list. So this is an achieved or archived version of the Bales list, a list of potential predatory publications created by the librarian Jeffrey Beal. We will only update these links uh, and add notes to the list. So this was the original list. So they said all these journals. You see the number of articles, number of journals, so many journals. So International Institute of Science and Industry, International Invention. So we are not saying these are all not authentic journals. They are authentic journals. Many of them are authentic journals, but then the practice of these journals sometimes becomes predatory. Say we had uh, IS International Journal of Computer Studies. In that, I published a number of papers. So the criteria to get published in that journal was paying 5,000 rupees. And initially, when I started publishing, there was no, all these ethics and so on was not really mandated. And what was required was publication. So there was no scopus, there was nothing of that thing. So a lot of journals said you pay 5,000 rupees per paper. So we published 5,000 rupees paid. You got your papers published, and this paper is actually indexed in Scopus. 1 year down the line, the entire journal got blacklisted by Scopus. They say they looked at the practice of this journal and they noticed that each issue and this particular journal was having about 24 issues a year, which means not every fortnight there was an issue coming out, and each issue was having some 400 to 500 articles. Imagine per article they are charging 5,000 rupees. Now imagine the number of articles get published in these journals within a span of 1 year, and all of them are Scopus indexed. That's the fun of it. And these journals, they don't do a peer review. They will say that you submit a paper within 1 week, the paper will be published. So we were all happy. Jaldi ho jayega. So we wrote the papers, we got them published, and then when we realized that these papers don't make any sense. Because at the end of the day, when the journal got blacklisted, all the papers that were published in that journal also got blacklisted, got delisted from Scopus. So we could not use any of those articles for our, appraisals, PhDs, etc., etc. So those are the things that we need to keep in mind. So if you want to understand what are the predatory journals, this Bales list is one that you can do it. Another thing is that Scopus has got a list, what they call a blacklisted journals list. Scopus blacklist journals. So they make a discontinued journals list, and they publish those lists also. All the journals that are discontinued from the journals Scopus list, that also they make it public. It's available. And from SCREE, Dr. Yogesh Patil periodically sends these lists to all the PhD scholars or the guides, etc., etc. So this is basically saying that there are journals that are not of good quality, They lure you with fast publication, no peer review. They say that the cost of publication is very limited. They would say that publish in open access just with 20,000 rupees, because to get your paper published in a good scope open access journal, it will cost about 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees. And here there is a journal promising you your paper will be open access, 20,000 rupees you have to pay. So you are lured into the whole process, and then you publish the paper, and then you realize that your paper is not in the scopus, because this is not indexed in the scopus at all. So you lose a lot of your time, your energy, your intellectual exercise that you did. You miss everything. Now, how to detect a predatory journal? One of the things they would say is that the speed of publication. They say that within 1 month, within 15 days, your paper will be published, etc. Which means that there is no peer review that's happening. Peer review takes sometimes 5 to 6 months to 1 year, sometimes even more than 1 year. So, which means there is no rigor. Misleading information. They will say that there is no, the publication fee is very less, etc. etc. And that's another thing. Then they talk about aggressive solicitation. They will continuously keep flooding your emails, flooding your all social medias, etc. etc. So you tend to think this is a good journal, and of course, high publication fee, sometimes low publication fee, in fact, because these journals would say that your APC, or what they call the open access publishing charge, is very less. Lack of transparency. There is vague or hidden policies regarding fees, peer review, editorial process, unclear contact details, often with unverifiable address, etc. So they give you an address, but then you will never be able to verify that address, whether it exists or not. Fake metrics and indexes. They say they have global impact factor 10. Now, for a social science journal, global impact factor 10 means, very high. And that journal says the paper will be published within 2 weeks. It's contradictory. So, a good journal, a Q1 journal, the impact factor many time is 0.2, 0.3, etc. And here they are saying 10 impact factor. It's something that is not palatable. Uh, Rapid publication, poor quality. You check the journal and read the previous articles, and then you realize that such horrible language में नहीं है, the analysis कुछ नहीं है, and then you realize that the journal article has got 4 or 5 references, citation is not properly done, references is not done. So these are all ways that you can actually see whether a journal is good, bad, etc. etc. So why are they problem? They deceive readers, they undermine research integrity, exploiting financially, harm reputation of the authors. So if I realize that if my papers are all getting published in the predatory journals, when I send my paper for a good journal, they will say all my previous publication has been in predatory journals. So this guy is not a good researcher. This guy takes value nahi hai. Reject the paper. Distort academic metrics, because it gives me more numbers without really doing any quality work in the process. So those are the reason why predatory journals need to be avoided. So always check the editorial board and see whether the editors mentioned are authentic. If you have got an editor mentioned as the chief editor of a journal, just go into the Google Scholar of that journal and see what is the citation index of that person. So sometimes what happened, the editors of the journal may have some just 100 citations. Now 100 citations, not good. So they are not good editors. Assess journals indexing. just goes to the go to the just go to the journal's indexing status. Now, in the journals, any good journal, uh, you will also get what they call, you just check on this. This is a journal of innovation and knowledge. Okay, a science direct journal. Now, if you go, you will get one is about indexing, about the journal aim, scope, editorial board, journal insights, some of the journal insights, they give you a lot of details on journals. Say, for example, impact factor is 24.7, that is a site score impact factor 14, open access, it is an open access journal. So submission to first decision is 3 days, submission to decision after review is 42 days, submission to acceptance is 161 days, etc. etc. So this is generally considered a journal that is considered a predatory journal, fast publishing. A good Elsevier journal will never have that details. So it's a science direct is the is the publisher, but this is generally considered as a predatory journal. Where is that out? Okay, so this is a journal now, university recognition, etc. Now, if you look at this, you see abstracting and indexing. If you go to the indexing, you will see all where the journal is indexed. It is indexed in Google, Scope database, Scope database, not Scopus, okay? Academia, Semantic Scholar, ResearchGate, etc., 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 ScienceGate, but not Scopus, not Web of Science. So as a result, if you publish in this journal, your article will get published. It will get reviewed. It will be in Google Scholar, etc., etc. But you will not credit for your PhD. So your PhD publication, this journal is not good enough. So always look at the journal's website, look at the editorial, look at the indexing to see whether the journal is of good caliber, good quality, etc. etc. So that's how you check for a predatory journal. So always you can also go into the past issues of the journals. Now, if you go to this journal that I was just referring to, articles. So these are all articles that's published in the journal. So I can actually access the articles. Not responding. It's supposed to give me the. So always journals give you a list of archives. You can go to the archives and find the previous articles and read and see whether the articles published in the journal are of good quality, Are they having citation, etc., etc.? Another thing that you can do is that, let's say you identify one article published in that particular journal and take that journal article, go to Google Scholar, and see the, let's say, this person called Trevino. So Trevino has published a lot of articles. Now look at the author Trevino. Now you look at cited by 8,189 people have cited this particular article. So Trevino as a researcher is very popular. Go ahead, आंख बंद करके उस जर्नल में जहां ये पेपर पब्लिश हुआ है, इट्स अ गुड पेपर, गुड जर्नल. सो यू कैन बी वेरी क्लियर ऑफ दैट. That is something that you, one another way to find out whether the journal where you have published or you are planning to publish is good or not. The kind of citation some of the articles have received in that particular journal. Okay, so that's more about predatory journal. I also gave you the list of predatory cloned journals. Bale's list is something that you can use to identify Bale's what do you call predatory journals, cloned journals. A cloned journal is actually predatory journals. They're actual journals by some universities, some institutes, etc. Cloned journals are completely illegal, completely bogus. So they would, there is a journal of business ethics. So these people will have a journal of business ethics website, and everything is similar to the original journal. And then they will say, APA, article processing charge, APC is something about 50,000 rupees. You publish it, and then you realize that you lost everything. That's cloned journals. Cloners copied the journal's name, ISSN, and even claimed to be indexed in websites like Scopus and EBSCO. But the cloned journal's website displayed several red flags, including an unusually high volume of articles in a single issue, articles published without a proper peer review process, article topics that were outside the stated scope of the genuine article, minor discrepancies in details, etc., etc. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, a few of my students wrote, not PhD students, master students wrote their dissertation and wanted to convert that dissertation into articles. They want to publish it. So they were searching for it, and they found out a journal, Palas, what do you call it, Journal of Archaeology, Egypt of Egypt. So it's an Egyptology paper. Came from a particular publisher called Palas, and the publication fee was 15,000 rupees. So a lot of people went there, published, and then they realized that there is actually a Palas Archaeology of Egypt journal, but this particular journal was completely bogus. And everybody who's published in that particular journal, their paper never got reflected anywhere. Na Google Scholar, kahi nahi. So that was something that has happened. Okay, so predatory journals and cloned journals are something that you need to avoid. So that is more or less what I wanted to discuss in today's session. I hope it made sense now. I'll send the PPT to Nishant. He will forward the presentations to all of you guys. So nice, interacting with you. And I hope you enjoyed my session, learned something new. And of course, there was some repetition of things going round and round. I hope it didn't make you bored out of it. So again, see you next weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. In the meantime, we need to do an assignment on research ethics. I will send the topic and where the research assignments to be posted via uh, Nishant. Nishant will share it. Okay, good. Bye.
Okay.
Okay.